Hi, my name is David Mann, and I've been asked to put together this brief video to help you understand why college students in the computer field would benefit from a course on Microsoft's SharePoint product. Very quickly, a little bit about me. I've been doing SharePoint for a very long time, since the product was first introduced in 2001. I've been awarded Microsoft's MVP award in recognition for my support of the SharePoint community since 2007, and I work for a company called Aptilon, a global SharePoint consulting company. Before we talk about why SharePoint, here's a very brief introduction to exactly what SharePoint is. SharePoint is a product from Microsoft that's used for everything from intranet sites to public-facing websites to custom applications. It's a unique product in that it can be used largely as is out of the box, tweaked just a little to fit your needs, or highly customized with significant custom development opportunities. SharePoint is a web application that sits on top of Microsoft's ASP.NET platform. Now that just barely scratches the surface of what SharePoint is, but it's a good start. From a business point of view, SharePoint is the fastest growing server product in Microsoft's history, currently a $2 billion portion of the Office business unit. One of the brightest aspects for SharePoint's future is its popularity. According to Microsoft's research from 2011, over 3/4 of the Fortune 500 companies used SharePoint. 20% of the knowledge workers in the United States used SharePoint, and for the 5 years heading up to when the research was done, 20,000 workers became SharePoint users every day. Very few other applications can claim these types of statistics. Honestly, some of them have increased in the 2 years since the research was done. SharePoint is even more popular now than it was 2 years ago. All that stuff is great, but really, why should you care? Why does any of that matter to you? The answer is simple. The number of job prospects for the SharePoint savvy is incredible, and it's not showing any signs of slowing down. Even through the tough economic times of the past few years, every single SharePoint professional I know remained gainfully employed, and most of us were turning away work simply because we were too busy. In many ways, it's like the recession didn't happen for us. That's not a bad area to move into. Stand out from the crowd of IT graduates. Have a skill that many businesses are actively looking for. In the past, SharePoint was known as a somewhat backwater product from a technology perspective. It used technologies that were outdated and not really that near cutting edge. That's no longer the case. Beginning with the 2010 release and continuing in the 2013 version, SharePoint is embracing web standards like HTML5 and JavaScript, technologies such as REST, OData, CSS, and regular .NET development. It's supporting mobile and bring-your-own-device scenarios, even starting to support non-Microsoft technologies such as PHP, Ruby on Rails, Java, etc. In addition, the consumerization of enterprise software brought about by the social revolution via Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. are making their way into SharePoint. The product is becoming more fun to use with every release. Finally, the SharePoint community is awesome. I've met and become friends with a global community of SharePoint practitioners like none I've ever heard of. We help each other, support each other, and collaborate across geographical boundaries. There's never a point in time when I feel I'm alone in the SharePoint world. Just so you don't think I'm some crazy guy drinking the Microsoft Kool-Aid, the next few slides will present the views of a couple of other crazy people I know. Matt makes a great point here. Regardless of what your specific role is, there's a place for you under the SharePoint umbrella. SharePoint is a huge product that crosses many technical and business disciplines, from developer to project manager to designer and UI expert to business analyst, information architect, and so much more. All of these disciplines have a place under the SharePoint umbrella. Sahil makes a similar point. Regardless of what portion of the Microsoft ecosystem you're in, there's a connection to SharePoint. As I said before, even some non-Microsoft disciplines are starting to make their way into the SharePoint world. Martin's take is slightly different. His company builds products in the SharePoint space, and they were able to get out to market much faster simply because they used SharePoint as a platform, leveraging the many building blocks of SharePoint to tackle otherwise tricky problems such as indexing and search, security, scalability, and those types of things that you get out of the box with SharePoint. Becky's view is that SharePoint has allowed her to do work that otherwise would have been unavailable to a small business. So many clients have SharePoint installed that the opportunities are nearly limitless. We're getting close to wrapping up, but here are some numbers to make you think a little. A simple search on popular job boards reveals many opportunities for SharePoint professionals. There are not enough qualified SharePoint professionals in the market to staff this need. Following the laws of supply and demand, the average salary for a SharePoint professional is higher than many other similar disciplines. A SharePoint developer can expect to make roughly 30% more than just a web developer. While these numbers may or may not seem great, it depends on your expectations, I can tell you from personal experience that $72,000 number, it's actually probably a little bit low for an average. I know people making 2, 3, 4 times this number or more. As I said, supply and demand. All that's great, but that's past or right now information. What about tomorrow, next week, next year? SharePoint is fully focused on current and future technologies. Gone are the days of SharePoint as a step behind in the technology world. Microsoft is all in with the cloud and all of the technologies and a standards-based approach to the web, which that entails. 2, the integration of SharePoint and critical business operations is not slowing down. If anything, it's speeding up. I don't see any signs of SharePoint slowing down from a technology, adoption, or business point of view. To close out this little SharePoint pep rally, I'll tell you that I hung my hat on a SharePoint career many years ago, and I've never looked back. The future looks great. I've met a lot of great people in the SharePoint world and have never once felt bored with what I did. SharePoint is such a large product that there's always a new, interesting aspect to work with and learn. One last point to make if you're wondering about the future. I'll close with a little analogy. I don't know if you've ever heard the saying that an aircraft carrier needs miles to alter its course in any significant way. At full speed, it just isn't going to turn on a dime. That's the business world. Companies are not going to alter their course overnight, at least not often. Right now, SharePoint has such a head of steam in the business world that it's not going to be possible for businesses to change course very quickly. They have so much invested in SharePoint that replacing it will be a massive undertaking. That's not to say that SharePoint will never slow down and become less popular, just that it isn't going to happen overnight. And from a technologist's point of view, that's the closest thing you can get to job security. To quote an old Timbuk 3 song from the 80s, well before most of you were born, I realized that, the future's so bright, I gotta wear shades.